Hello and welcome to Esri Australia's video tutorial on how to create and publish a story map using ArcGIS StoryMaps, our new story map application. Before we begin, what is a story map? ArcGIS StoryMaps is like a PowerPoint but better. StoryMaps helps you to communicate content or stories with the assistance of custom maps, text, images and videos. This combination leads to an immersive and interactive experience that guides your audience through a digital narrative. The use of story maps gives your narrative a stronger sense of place, illustrates spatial relationships, and adds visual appeal and credibility to your ideas. It's a surefire way to engage your students in the classroom and improve their and your technological literacy at the same time. Even if you don't have a map that you would like to use, StoryMaps is still a fantastic platform for creating engaging learning materials, making it perfect for a range of subjects in addition to geography. There are currently two StoryMap websites available for teachers or for the general public. Classic StoryMaps is our first website, and our new ArcGIS StoryMaps, which is our second website. And the question begs, what version should you use? If you've never used Esri's Classic StoryMaps, it's recommended that you jump right in with the use of our new ArcGIS StoryMaps. If you have worked with Classic StoryMaps, it's likely that you have some favourite storytelling templates and features you've grown accustomed to. Whilst you'll be able to continue to create and edit stories in Classic StoryMaps until 2024, it's recommended that you make the leap and give the new ArcGIS StoryMaps a go. The new application incorporates many of the classic templates into a single story builder, giving you the flexibility to mix and match, if you will, the types of storytelling patterns you would like to use. And looking at this diagram here, just to briefly summarize, we can see our two different StoryMap websites. And the Classic StoryMaps website is actually entering a phase of extended support before it then enters mature support. So to briefly summarize, this Classic Builder will continue to be available until July 2024, but from 2021, there'll be no updates to that particular website unless it's critical maintenance. And after 2024, you will no longer be able to create new stories. You'll still be able to view the stories you've previously created, but you won't be able to edit or create new ones. And that's why I encourage you today to make the leap to ArcGIS StoryMaps, which has just as much functionality and a whole lot more too. And that's what our tutorial today is going to be focusing on. Today we'll be using ArcGIS StoryMaps, that's the new website, to learn how to create a story map using the new templates. So the first thing we need to do is visit the website storymaps.arcgis.com, which will take us to a sign-in page. We click that, and all we need to do once we arrive at the sign-in page is to enter our normal ArcGIS details. So they don't change between ArcGIS Online, Survey 123 or StoryMaps, they're the same. You just need to enter those details and it will take you to this new page. And you can see all of the stories that you've created at any time right in front of you. But we're going to go up to the top here and we're going to create new story today. And it will launch the story builder where we'll be able to create our story map using a variety of different functions and capabilities. You'll notice that's in draft format at the moment and that it saves. The great thing about this new story maps is it saves as you go. So if your internet suddenly drops out, we've got nothing to worry about. Most of it should still be there when it comes back in. So the first thing we need to do is come up with a title and a subtitle for our story. And I'm going to go with The First Crusade today. I've been planning to make a resource about it for a while. The First Crusade. And my subheading is going to be Causes, Events, and Outcomes. Fairly generic. Before I add an image or video, I want to show you this Design tab up the top. If we click on that, we can actually start to design from the get-go what our story map's going to look like. So if I didn't want my cover to look like that, I could change its appearance as I perhaps wanted to. I'm going to leave it as the default one. This is my favorite, and that's personal preference. You can turn on some navigation tools and some credits tools, and you can choose the theme, the colors, and the font pairings that will appear throughout your story map. I'm going to go with the dark theme today, Obsidian, and you'll notice that changed my font pairings automatically. If I didn't like those fonts, no worries, I can still change them as well. And it gives an accent color too. Again, if I like something else instead, I can make a different color too, or I can enter a custom color. I'm going to leave that at that. I'm going to shut the design tab. I'm going to add an image. And I think that I've got my folder already open with my images. I'm going to drag one of my images in, and I'm going to add it to the story map. It'll take a moment to load, but once it does, we've got our title page. And my biggest, advice for a title page is to make it big, bold, and engaging. So we've got this stark white text against this deep dark background image, and that's how I'd go about it. I see lots of teachers like to write a story map on causes, events, and outcomes. Let the story map speak for itself. You don't need to introduce it as a story map. From here, all we need to do to get our story map up and running is to scroll down, and you'll notice that there's a little plus icon with a tell your story ellipsis. So all we need to do is press plus, and it brings up a number of functions that we can begin attacking our story map from. The first thing that jumps out at me is a heading. So I'm going to chuck in a heading there, and all I need to do is type, and that heading kind of font appears for me. I'm going to write historical context, and I'm going to enter down, and again the plus will appear. And I want to add a subheading, and I'm going to call this religious climate prior to the First Crusade. And you would enter your information down below. Now you can continue to press the plus icon to introduce paragraphs of dot points, etc. Otherwise it's fairly intuitive, and if you just started typing away as if you were in a Word document, then it would follow suit. Now I've pre-prepared some text, so I'm going to copy and paste this text in, and just like such, and you can see that it takes that paragraph form straight away for me. And you'll also notice that I have a link ready to go, and this is a link to an image. So if I'm just going to copy this link. I'm going to go back to the story map, and I'm going to press the plus icon, and here we can see kinds of media types that we can add in. So if you've been working in ArcGIS Online, then you can add a map in too. I'm going to click on the image icon for now, and you can upload them from your computer, or you can copy the image URL from Google Images or a website you might have found an image on. Go to link and paste that image URL in there and hit add. And it'll take a moment to find it on the internet, but then it comes up for you as well. Okay, so here we're talking about how the how the Western Church and the Eastern Church split in 1054. You'll notice that there's a spot for a caption for this image. If you left it blank, you wouldn't be able to see that. Your audience wouldn't be able to see that when they were viewing it. If you populate it, then of course they'll be able to see it. I'm going to call this image the Great Schism. And then all I need to do is hit enter, and I can continue with my story with that plus icon. Now I'm going to pause it here and populate my story for you, and when we come back on the other side, you'll see what it looks like. So for the purpose of this video, I've done a little bit of a sneaky and have completed a lot of my story map, not all of it, but a lot of it, and I've used a combination of these kinds of functions as well as some images as well. I'm going to jump back in just a second, and I'm going to show you how to use some of these templates down here and add your own maps to it as well. So returning to my story map, I left you with just this first bit done and our first image in, and I've just worked away at adding to my story map and fleshing it out, telling the story. As you can see, there's a lot of text in my story, and I'm setting the scene for the First Crusade. Now I'm at a stage here where I am going to want to show off a map. So I'm going to click on the plus button again. I want to change the kind of template that we've been going through so far. It's been fairly not ordinary, but standard in what to expect. And these four down here, well, not so much the swipe. The swipe is a map where you put two of the same maps from different time periods or that are showing different data sets in, and you can swipe across to see how those data sets change. Not so much that one, but these three in particular are good for swapping up the templates. And if you're not sure what they do, you can always hit the information icon too, and it'll give you a little bit of information about it. And if you decide later on that you've added it and you don't want it, you can delete it and you can choose another one. Now I'm going to go with sidecar today. It's up to you if you decide to go the same way. And it'll give me two options. I can have a floating panel or I can have a docked panel. And it gives you an outline of each. I'm going to choose the floating panel today. So that's going to float on top of my media. It can be a map, it could also be an image. It's going to float on top of that. I'm going to click it and you can see that it changes this template up. So what we had before is now changed a little bit here. And I'm going to add a map in and click Add Map. Now here's where it gets interesting on the new ArcGIS StoryMaps. This shows all of your maps that have been saved in ArcGIS Online and that are able to be shared with others in your organization or everyone. Or we have this added function here. I'm going to click on it for now because we can always go back on it. We can actually create a new express map on the fly. Okay, so we have all of these kinds of functions up the top that we can start adding our map to. You can notice it's just taken a while to bring the map in, but let's go over here to start with properties. And I can choose my base map just like I would in ArcGIS Online. So if I'm not happy with the black on black, although this suits my my theme quite nicely, I could choose a different map, base map here. I could enable a legend if I begin to create legends, etc. And I can also name my feature layers, which I don't have any here at the moment, but let's say I wanted to add a couple of points onto the map. You can see that I've just added a point. I'm going to call this one Mainland Europe to be safe. And I could give a description as well if I want to, and I click Done, and that first point gets locked in. Now you can create lines, free-form lines, you can insert text or annotations, you can even insert arrows as well. Let's try an arrow. And the great thing about the arrow is you can actually make it a little bit flexible as well through the use of that dot in the middle. You can change the arrows, etc. So you can actually customize your map quite nicely. And if you want, you can always continue to you can continue to build on this map. Here we can see I'm creating a polygon and got a polygon shape there too, and I can add information about that layer too. And once I'm finished, all I need to do is click Done, and this map will actually get added to my story map. So it's really great for not having to go back into ArcGIS Online, set your map up, and then come into here, especially if it's a simple, easy map. Now I have prepared a map, so if I'm not happy with the map I've chosen, all I need to do is hit the bin icon, it deletes it, gives you a warning that it can't be undone. So there's no undo in this because it's always saving. So you just need to be aware of that when you do go to delete things. And I'm going to add a map again. Instead of choosing New Express Map, which is a useful tool, I'm going to choose one that I have created for this story map. It's the First Crusade. And it's going to load up. And it's going to ask me to set the map extent. So I'm going to bring it right out for now. You can see it's loading a bit. It might take some time, that's alright. I'm going to go a bit closer in, I think. So at the moment, all I need for my audience to see is this first half of mainland Europe. Happy with that. Happy with what's being shown. I'm going to enable the legend on the side here. I don't need my audience to search, so I'm going to leave that off. I don't need to know their current location, I'm going to leave that off. But I do want them to be able to move around the map, so I'm going to leave that map navigation tab on. Okay. Don't have any bookmarks in mine, so I don't need to worry about that. When I'm happy with it, I'm going to place the map. Once your map is loaded, you can begin to see how everything works together. So in the pause, I added another heading and some text again to complement my map. Now you might be wondering how I moved this particular panel from the left to the right. It's as simple as clicking on here. You can actually move it over to the left, or in the middle, or at the right, and you can even change the size and the width of the panel too to suit your needs. So I'm going to keep it at small for now. I'm going to move it back over to the right so that it complements my map. They don't need to see red yet, but they can if they drag. And if they don't, that's fine. And you'll see that I've enabled the legend, and that's over here, so I don't even have to click on it. I just hover over it and it pops up, tells my audience what the colors mean. Now, that's probably the reason I've set my panel over here, because otherwise it's going to get in the way of the legend. And unfortunately you can't choose what corner the legend appears in as of yet. I'm sure that functionality will probably come down the track. And like I mentioned before, you can also change, just like in a Word document, the color of your text. So all you need to do is, if I want my 4 names here to match the 4 paths that I can see over here, all I need to do is hover over the text, click on this little paint icon, and you'll notice that the recommended colors are the only ones listed, but I can put custom colors in it. You might be wondering, where do I find that number combination? Well, at the moment, the best way I know is to go back to ArcGIS Online, and in any kind of feature class where you can choose the color of your symbol, you can hover over any color and you can see that we get that number combination for the color. So I want a yellow. I want to copy this color combination, go back to my story maps, and I'm going to enter it in here. And you'll see that that yellow pops up, and all I need to do is hit enter for the change to take effect. Do it again with Raymond of Toulouse. Highlight his name, click on the paint icon, go over here. He's represented by a purplish color. Copy. Go back to my story map, and again, paste it in, and hit enter. I've got my 4 colors there. Now I didn't need to do that. I do have a legend, however, hey, it might help some of my readers quickly access what the map's about, and it means that they might not even need to use this legend, which does at the moment block a little bit of my map off. So there's an added option for you to do. Now the great thing about Sidecar is you can continue to add to the one map if you wanted to, but you can also add multiple maps or multiple media. So you'll notice that by clicking on this plus icon now, instead of the one up here, we can begin to add to this sidecar feature. We can continue to add as many images or maps to it as we want, and continue to build our story in an interactive way. So again, I might click, I might choose an image this time. Let's see what random image I can use just as an example. I'm just going to bring in this painted windows image and click add. And once it's in, I'll continue to add to my story. And this time, let's just go a little bit quickly. Blah, blah, blah. And we've got our image there. And of course, if we go to settings, we can actually choose how we want it to appear. So we can actually move what's visible in the image around. You could choose to fill or to not fill. Once you're happy with the positioning, click save and it locks it in. So you can continue to build this sidecar as long as you want. Once you're done, you don't press finish or anything like that. You simply keep scrolling down and you'll notice you can continue with your story just here like you were originally. So if I scroll back up, just like here. Okay, if you decide halfway through the sidecar is not for you, that is all right. If we go back to number 1, we can actually get rid of these by right-clicking and hitting delete, and right-clicking and hitting delete. Okay, so you can remove the sidecar if you weren't happy with it. sure that, well, there you go, you don't even have to go through all the PowerPoint slides. You can delete the whole sidecar at once if you wanted to choose a different template. The great thing here is if I continue to scroll down, I might decide that I want to go straight from a sidecar into a guided tour. And again, it gives me a choice, and I can make that choice, and once it loads, I can go straight into a different type of template. So this is the real pleasing feature about this new and improved StoryMaps. The classic StoryMaps, you could only choose one template. You were bound to that template for the entirety of your story map. This one allows you to mix and match and change according to the needs of your story map. So I don't need this one, that was just an example, and I'm just going to click on the bin icon to delete it and continue on with my story map. Okay. For the purpose of this story map, I'm not going to finish it. I could continue to finish it by writing in something like a conclusion and a closing paragraph. You'll notice down the bottom here, there's options for a reference section. Now, if you leave this blank, again, your audience won't be able to view it, won't be able to see it. It's not going to be a part of your story map. However, if you begin to populate it, it will appear at the bottom of your story map. At any time, regardless of whether you've finished or you just want to check your progress, you can actually click on the preview button to see what your story map looks like to your audience. I usually use the preview button to make sure that my formatting looks correct, and I use it as an opportunity to read through my work and proofread my work before I go live with it. So just be aware that you can preview your work at any time, and that just changes you from an editing perspective to an audience perspective. Now, the final thing on the agenda for this tutorial is the publish button. Once you've finished your story map, if you leave it as it is, it will simply stay in a draft format, which means only you can view it. For others to view it, like classes or like the general public, you need to click on the publish icon and set your sharing settings. So if you only want students or classes from your school to be able to view it, users from your account, then you need to click on my organization. If you're happy with everyone seeing it, you can click on everybody. If you just want it to stay on visible to you, then you can set it on private, and then if you were logged into your account, you could preview it to your class that way too. So consider how you want it to be shared, and once you're happy with your shared choice, you can edit this at any time by the way. But I'm going to choose everyone. If I want to later go back to my organization, it's a matter of clicking on the publish button and changing it to my organization. I'm going to click on everyone, and I'm going to click on publish story. And the great thing about ArcGIS for StoryMaps is it checks for issues. So if a video doesn't work, or an image URL is broken, or later becomes, it gets taken down off a website, it'll let you know that there are issues in your story map, that those URLs might need to be changed. Gives you a little congratulations, you've published it. And from there, once you've published it, you'll notice that those editing functions go away. You can always click back into edit story to go and make further changes, but you are given the option to share your work. So you can share it to Facebook or Twitter, and the one that I probably find most useful for classrooms is to share it via an email or via a Word document, whatever it happens to be. So by clicking on this one, it copies the URL for you. You can go to your emails, you can send it in an email to your students. And that way they can access it and do it from home, or if you're in a computer lab, they all have really easy access to the URL too. And that's about it. That concludes our tutorial on how to create a story map using the new ArcGIS for StoryMaps application. Please let me know if you have any feedback. We'd love to hear about how we at Esri Australia can support you. Thanks.